Here we go.
Oh, wonderful, the technology. Well, just to start off, straight to the point, Mary Ellen, how do we explain the goals and purpose of the community-based prevention efforts that you have been part of here in Tucson as well as elsewhere, like Louisiana? How do we tell people what we're doing
Yeah,
and what we hope to accomplish?
that's a great question. And I think at the core, it's exactly what you said, and it's explicit in the name. It is a community-based crime reduction, crime prevention, safety promoting initiative. But as we know, crime is often related to other issues. The motivation for crime, involvement in crime, these are all things that are commonly related to other things that are happening in somebody's life that kind of push them into making choices that maybe aren't in their best interest or that could be harmful to themselves or other people. So what this initiative does, I'll call it CBCR for short, is really try to not only improve safety and address crime that's happening, but really get more to the root cause, like really to drill down to what is driving crime. What are those social drivers that are making making the opportunity for crime to happen, or kind of compelling people into making bad decisions, frankly. And so what we do is try to understand so we want to understand the crime that's happening when we start an initiative like this, whatever city this is happening in, but what we've done in Tucson as well is really look to see, what kind of crime is taking place, where is that happening commonly, who's involved in it, who's committing the crime, who's being impacted by it or victimized by it, sometimes what we call it, and how prevalent is it. But then again, digging in more deeply and trying to understand what is driving it. So why is this happening, and how can we work harder to prevent it so that, really we can have like a thriving community.
And of course, who is affected by crime? One of the points of the Oracle grant initiative is driven, if you will, by businesses who have long dealt with issues associated with transients, with criminal activity. And this is a very difficult issue to deal with. But how do we balance the different constituencies in a community-based crime reduction effort? You have residents, you have property owners, you have the people themselves, you have police, you have, again, these different entities or groups.
Yeah.
How do we satisfy the various groups?
That's a good question. It's a hard one to answer.
That's the big question.
The miracle answer. So I don't know that there's a single straight easy way to do that, but we do use models that have been developed over time trying to answer exactly that. So when you have different stakeholder groups, you have residents, you've got business owners, you've got human service providers that are trying to help people that may be involved in criminal activity. How do you bring them together around what we call kind of a commonality or mutual self-interest? So we're working together toward a common goal. So that's why with CBCR and what we've done with the Thrive in the '05 initiative is really working very deeply in partnership with the community, bringing together these stakeholders from all these different areas in conversation, trying to, again, answer those questions that I mentioned before, and then co-create solutions, to co-create or strengthen solutions and strategies that can help to prevent it, to reduce it, and to get to those root causes. So there's no simple answer for that. And people certainly have, different interests, as far as what the outcome is, but ultimately, most people want a safe community. They want a safe place to live, to work, to play, to grow. And so we're able, to get people together in that conversation and then work together collectively toward toward positive change.
And I would imagine, or more than imagine, I would strongly suspect that people who are on the street also want a safe community.
Exactly, exactly.
So
And
how do they play into this collaborative effort?
well, I wish they played in more, because I think that that's a critical voice that has to be a part of the conversation again, to be able to get to that root change, because people don't usually end up on the street, you know, from a healthy place. Like, you know, they end up there for many reasons, but commonly have to do with, you know, poverty, or with, there are all kinds of reasons. Maybe, you know, drug misuse, or kind of getting caught in, the wrong circles, if you will. Like, you know, just you can end up in that space, and it happens more easily than a lot of people assume. You know, it can happen very easily. And then when you're in that space in the street, you know, your goal is survival. And of course, you know, you want, I think you do have the same goals again, for safety, for well-being for yourself. But, you know, there are people that need some help, need like a hand up in getting the services and different things that can really help them achieve their full potential. So whether that's mental health support, or addiction, or drug treatment, or you know, just help toward educational and job training to get into a livable wage career. You know, there are all kinds of things that people need. And so that's why it's really critical to not, you know, the business owner's voice is important, the resident's voice is important, you know, the social service providers are important, but equally, and maybe even more important, are the people that are you know, participating in the type of behavior, you know, that may make other people uncomfortable, or may, you know, be causing what we consider to be problems.
And that we would hope to stem and to stop. Traditionally, historically, the method to change these activities, to stop these activities, has been the police. What role can law enforcement today, in the context of what we are seeing nationally, what role does law enforcement play in helping us resolve these issues and problems?
Well, I think we have to decide that, right? I think for a long time, what we've seen is that law enforcement has been increasingly asked to solve all the problems that, when, whether, you know, that you have a neighbor that has a rooster in their yard, or you're seeing somebody, you know, that you're seeing a shooting happening, or some, you know, whatever it is, everyone seems to call the police. And so over time, you know, most police departments have done what they can to adapt, to be responsive to the community needs. But they're really not, you know, that they're law enforcement, right? So the training is not, their job is to enforce the law. And instead they're being asked to be problem solvers, and, you know, to fix everything in the community, and to wear so many hats that they haven't necessarily been trained to do. I mean, I think in Tucson, we're unique in many ways, because our police department here has a mental health support team. That's not something that you see in a lot of other communities. There is a substance misuse program. So they have made an effort to really dig in and be responsive, and get training to address these community needs that we're seeing. But truly, like that, you know, they're having to conform and adapt to fill a huge gap in providing services, and really getting, again, to the root causes that is not necessarily the traditional role that law enforcement, you know, needs to be responsible for, frankly.
They are put in a very difficult position, the police officers, to do the multiple jobs or demands that we place on them. And one of the initiatives that I mentioned earlier, the Oracle Grant Business Coalition effort, where we are asking police to ask, or to work with businesses to coordinate a no trespassing effort, and place no trespassing signs on the businesses, and issue no trespassing letters to those who violate the trespassing ordinance, and this is to limit aggressive loitering and drug use. So how does this effort fit into the broader goals and practices of the CBCR that we have been working on?
So, I mean, I think again, when police are doing their job to try to cut down or address loitering, address trespassing, enforce the law, and I think it fits in with our effort in the sense that Grant and Oracle is an area where we have seen a trend of, it's a place where crime happens a lot. And so it's important to be able to address that in that place. But we have to do more than that, which is where CBCR comes in and works in partnership with police, in partnership with businesses, in partnership with residents, and with the people that are there that are loitering or that are trespassing, and trying to, again, be able to connect them with the services and things that they need, so that it's not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem, but that we're really, we are concerned with each individual person that's impacted by this kind of activity.
In addition to that coalition, business coalition effort, what are the other specific strategies that are being implemented as part of the CBCR effort?
So we have several. I'll mention a few and ask Nadia to share some. I think, yeah, on the preventative side, we do have several youth initiatives that we're working to adapt in our COVID context, right? So but we do have what's called Youth Empowerment Solutions, which is engaging with middle school, high school aged youth in the Old Pasqua community and in our Thrive in EF5 community, which includes Old Pasqua, Nash Elementary. There's Chicanos por la Causa has a leadership program. So we're engaging youth in character development, building, sort of programming, and leadership, advocacy programming. And at the end, they actually spend their entire time in the project. They get mentorship. And at the end, they develop a community change project that they actually implement. So it could be something that they do at Grant and Oracle, or it could be something they do at National Elementary, or out in the community. But they actually think about how can they be a leader, how can they promote a healthy community, how can they be a vehicle of a community catalyst, a vehicle for positive outcomes for their neighborhood, and be leaders in that effort, and then get to do something to really make a difference on something that they care about. So that's a really exciting thing that is coming up. And we also have the community resiliency model, which is a response. It's actually a training of wellness skills where people who, it's really tailored for people who have experienced trauma, toxic stress, chronic stress, and teaching wellness skills so that people can stay in what we call a resilient zone. So you can really learn how to keep in a healthy space and navigate the challenges that you come across every day that may really be something that's a high stressor and knock you out and activate or agitate you and kind of get you stuck there, or that could really bring you down to a place of depression. And so these are skills that people can use to help self-regulate their nervous system and stay in that resilient zone, which is just, again, the space where we can have more healthier interactions with each other, where we can communicate better, and it's really important for all of our partners, for, again, people who are on the streets commonly have trauma issues or deal with toxic, stress every day in their life. And same with our law enforcement partners, they're exposed to a lot of trauma, secondary trauma. And so really for all of our partners, that's something that we're really excited about being able to bring and share out. Actually, Nadia, I got trained on that this summer. So we've got a team of facilitators ready to go. I don't know if you want to add anything on that, Nadia. Why don't you tell them about DMI, because that's another thing related to the drug market intervention.
Drug market intervention, yes, I was going to mention that. Your turn, Nadia.
And I'm going to cheat because I love this little paragraph that they have to describe the drug market intervention. So I just love reading that. So DMI stands for drug market elimination, drug market intervention. And DMI eliminates overt drug markets by bringing together community leaders, law enforcement, and service providers with street-level dealers and their families to make it clear that the dealing must stop, that law enforcement will behave differently, and that there's help for those who want it. So it's a evidence-based intervention that functions when it works to shut down an open-air drug market. But the beautiful part about it, I think, is it's a community-based intervention. And so it really works because there's 5 phases, and one of the crucial phases is the community police reconciliation piece. And that is just all about what Mary Ellen was saying, really just facilitating and bringing together all different kinds of folks and facilitating those conversations and connections, because we know that communities that are connected thrive better and are healthier and have more access to more resources and to each other.
Has DMI started? Where are we seeing some of that work being done?
Sure. Like I said, it's in 5.
Is Flores an 11th part of the DMI?
Well, so it's a 5-phase intervention. So we're in the first phase, which means we just finished our phase 1 training with TPD. And that was kind of just getting everyone on board on the same page. Another reason why this works is actually really looking at data and really following it and really looking at it from that angle. So that's part of the intervention. So we're at the beginning of that.
Well, and I'm so glad, Nadia, you really, the overview of that is so excellent. And I just wanted to offer up too that, I have repeatedly heard from officers, rank and file officers that have worked in this area for, decades, saying how, just throwing more enforcement at some of the, for those who might tune in to this or read the article in the newsletter, they might not be aware that we have a 30+ year open air drug market in certain areas within the Thrive in the 05 area. And I think there's very few folks who are operating in those areas who think that everything is like hunky-dory, right? Like there's a desire for an intervention on multiple levels. I think almost regardless of who you talk to. And so really having an opportunity to not only partner with, TPD is taking a very active role in doing this and really altering the way that they're approaching this particular area and the people who live there, right? And who are doing all different types of businesses in the area as well. So we're really looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Here's one of the grand, maybe elusive questions, but still it's a grand question. What does success look like? How do we, when we get there, how will we know that we're there?
And when do we test that? So I think success is a lot of different layers. So within, those are 3 of many strategies that we're actually in the process of implementing. And let me take a step back too, because I do want to emphasize that for anybody that would not be familiar with this, that these are not interventions that ASU, OCHR, our team, or Ward 3, or any of the partners that have been involved in this came up with on our own. This is, again, we dug in through meetings, through community conversations, through visioning sessions with residents, with partners, cross-sector partners, with the community, and co-created these strategies. So again, some are evidence-based, like the DMI. And so we knew we needed something like this. We looked at what other communities were doing and what worked, and we grabbed that and said, let's try that here. So I just want to emphasize that part. And then, so there are lots of layers of success. So within each of these, it'll be kind of the primary layer of how are the people that participate in this impacted? So, are their lives improved? Or their, the things that they're engaged for youth, are they engaging in pro-social activities and things that are, really promote healthy, positive youth development. But then on the larger scale, I think, and this kind of gets back to what you asked about in the beginning, like how do we bring people together with all these different sort of potentially different agendas? needs, desires. I think at the end of the day, what's most important to us is really that we build community capacity, that we see that there are relationships forged and built and trust shared between police and residents, between business owners, and just across the board, that we see these relationships built and that they are able then to problem solve together, that there's what we call collective efficacy, which is really about promoting safety and an intolerance for behavior that is considered to be unproductive or dangerous in my block or my street or my neighborhood, and saying, how do we, but not just stepping in and saying, I'm not going to tolerate that here, but saying, okay, how do we help this person? We know that Ward 3, has many resources they can connect us with. So I'm going to call Neto or Sarah and let them know about, this person that's homeless, that's on my street, that needs help, or, that people learn how to, because of these connections, they learn where to go, and they learn where they can get help, or they can get help for their neighbors or for other people in their community, and that we really build that up. Like, I think at the end of the day, that's at least, I think our teams, and I think you all share that with us, our dream for, because you're a part of our team, but, you share that goal. That's what you do at the ward, and that's what we really aim to do, is just building community.
This is our town. This is our Tucson. The council and the mayor and council are currently developing, and city departments are currently developing the community safety pilot program, which does somewhat go hand in hand with what is happening in the Thrive in the 05. So here's the big question, Dr. Brown. Based on your experiences with CBCR here, elsewhere, what recommendations would you offer to the city manager and the mayor and council as they begin to develop this community safety pilot program?
Well, that's a big question, Neto.
That's all right.
If the mayor's listening, no. If
you have the authority right now.
this is my spotlight. Great.
Yeah.
Well, I love the direction the city's going in, and council, and really promoting and recognizing that social work can be an asset in the community, that social workers can come in and really help to be co-responders or first responders in addressing nonviolent sort of situations that are happening that have to do with mental health needs or behavioral health, or maybe addiction, and things that our first responders are called to address all the time. So I think that is something, again, I would thank you all, the city, for really focusing in on and promoting right now, because I think that's essential, and social workers can do many, many things. So I would definitely, again, like, I'm in support of that, and I think that that I want to see social workers really maximized within this community safety pilot, because they can do more than just counseling. Social workers are trained in mediation and facilitation, trained in trauma sort of treatment and trauma supports, trained in all kinds of things, advocacy, trained in facilitating difficult conversations, community conversations, trained to do everything from case resource, care resource kind of coordination, so that you make sure people are getting into their services that they need to be able to achieve their full potential and function, in a really healthy way, and follow up. Like, that's one of the things I think that's a real challenge for, again, to our police department's credit, they do try to solve all these issues that they come across their plate. But it's the time that they have to focus on that, to do the follow-up, to really invest in each individual person that is brought into the system in one way or another, or into their scope of interaction. It's social workers can provide that follow-up. They could really be that continuation and make sure that not only people are getting into treatment or into services that they need, or getting engaged with organizations that can help them, but then that they're thriving in that situation, or they're successful there. And then once they move higher up, then they can get connected to more resources that they need. And so I think that resource coordination, really helping to build and facilitate trust and healing for, we have decades and decades of trauma and strain between, traditional law enforcement entity and what it stands for and how it's been carried out, and our community members of color. And so, I think social workers can do a lot to help, to help with that in a way, to help to sort of help promote healing and addressing trauma and reconciliation, like Nadia mentioned.
That's why we're fortunate in Tucson to have the ASU School of Social Work with us here.
And, well, one last thing, Neto, too, and I'd also say I would love, so your recommendations, I got stuck on the social work one because that's the huge one.
That's all right.
But I would love I think this community-based crime reduction model could happen across the city in different barrios. It's something that we could really look at in different places. So I'd love for us to consider this a pilot and then say, where else can we go with this? And really, what can we learn here and Thrive in the O5? And what can we replicate in other areas of Tucson?
Lastly, Dr. Brown, of course, much of our work, your work, our work, everyone's work has been stymied by the pandemic. But I can just imagine that once we're past this, we're just going to rip right through our work. Maybe rip's not the right word, just in a very energetic way, just focus and do the work that needs to be done when this is over.
I think we're all going to be dancing in the streets when we can get out and really interact, because I think that's been the hardest part of the pandemic, is that for 2 years we've been in the Thrive in the O5 community, just hand in hand with our neighbor leaders and other partners, and that's it's hard. It hurts, right? Like, not to be able to be in community and in the same way. And so that's definitely something that I think we'll all be rejoicing when we're able to really be together, because that togetherness is what this is so much about.
Well, Dr. Brown and Nadia, we hope you stay with us for another couple of years. Let's see this through. Sarah, do you have any other questions for Mary Ellen?
No, I just want to say thank you. Thanks so much for taking time out to talk with us. And we're going to keep reaching out, as the different strategies evolve, so that we can make sure that we're getting information out to Ward 3 residents, not all of whom live in the Thrive in the O5 area, but are obviously very interested. And I think, as Ernesto had said, earlier on, the more that we can talk about what's happening here, I think the more it can provide an example that could be replicated elsewhere in the city, or beyond, right? And obviously, I know you totally get that, Mary Ellen, because you've been part of similar efforts in other states and other cities. So we're so excited to see how it evolves. And I know it's not going to be perfect. We're going to hit bumps in the road, for instance, on the drug market intervention. It's inevitable, because we're doing something hard, because we're addressing a huge challenge, right?
Right.
And so it's not going to be this easy breezy thing, but we got to start somewhere. And we really look forward to being able to continue to kind of share that story with our constituents and other partners in the city. So yeah, we'll be calling on you.
Yes, we will.
Well, we know where you are too, so we'll be in touch. And I guess if you share this, when you share this out too, I'd ask, if anybody wants to get involved, we definitely have opportunities to volunteer, whether you live in the community or not. We have things that are going on to support in COVID relief right now, and for some of the most vulnerable members of the community. And so they can email us at thriveintheo5@gmail.com. So if you could share that out, that would be great. And we can get people connected to volunteer opportunities, or if they just want to learn more. You all are part of our core leadership partner team. So obviously they can reach out to the ward as well, to Ward 3, to learn more with you all. but we're happy to, you know, engage in further conversation about this, and would love to get more people engaged in the work. So, because it really truly does take all of us together.
Sure does. Thanks, Mary Ellen. Thanks, Nadia.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
we'll
you.
be in touch. Bye.